Hello, we are here. I am so excited about this evening's panel discussion with these incredible individuals in the cannabis industry. If you are just joining us, my name is Gia Moron, president of Women Grow, and we are bringing you Cannabis Innovators. And this is a subject that we've been wanting to bring to you all. Our mission is to connect, educate, empower, and inspire that next generation of cannabis leaders. And I believe this panel tonight will hit all of those touch points. Why? Because they're creating I would say things in the industry that we either use, we look for to wear, we're using to create meals or just having a nice ingestible, right, to enjoy for the evening. And so what's also special about tonight is, one, it's being sponsored by Curaleaf. So thank you so much, Curaleaf, for always being supportive of Women Grow and our discussions. And then in addition to, and you'll learn more about this later, but this very panel discussion will air on our new podcast that will be launching tomorrow. So this episode is not airing tomorrow, but it will be in a very near future. And I'm so excited. So I want to start out by introducing these phenomenal women. And if you have noticed yet, we didn't call this a panel of women. We just called this a panel, and a panel of innovators. But I will acknowledge that we are a group of women here, but no matter what, we are all phenomenal. And so I want to start out reading each of their bios. So first at the top, we have Shanel Lindsay. She is an attorney, activist, entrepreneur, founder and president of Ardent Life, a Boston-based biotech consumer diverse device company focused on improving the science and medicine of cannabis. Shanel is the creator of the Nova Precision Decarboxylator, which sometimes can be a mouthful, which regulates medical cannabis dosing, and the new Ardent FX, which is an all-in-one cooking, infusion, and baking device. We're going to talk about that. We are still going to talk about that. And if you've been following us on any of our social media platforms, each of these women, we have been promoting their brand. Why? Because we love to see it. And so, Shanel, we're going to be talking more about your device. And I have followed some of those recipes, so can't wait for you to talk about it more. And then next, we have Miss Jasmine Mans. Now, if you've never heard of this brand, I don't know what rock you were under, because let me just tell you, buy weed for women is everywhere. It is like the slogan. And honestly, I feel like it's very much what this innovator panel is all about, right? And so Jasmine launched her brand in 2018 in a design lab, and, has printed over thousands of products. And in addition, Jasmine's an author, and I have her book too. Her book came out this year on Berkeley Penguin Random House, called Black Girl Called Home. Jasmine is a future of storytelling. That she's been named a fellow, and her visual arts and her poetry can be found, needs to be heard, and you'll be hearing more from Jasmine and Buy Weed from Women as we continue going on. And then next we have Miss Cynthia. So, I don't know why I just blanked on your last name. Okay, here we go. Salarizadeh. I know this because Cynthia and I actually work together, but I'm a little excited here. But Cynthia is the co-founder and president of House of Saka. And after visiting Sonoma about a year or so ago, or more now, I think at this point, you ended up moving out to California to work in the cannabis industry. And, you met with a bunch of winemakers and cannabis cultivators, and you knew you wanted to start a wine-infused company, which, by the way, it is a non-alcoholic, and we're going to talk about that. And so Cynthia started her company with Tracy Mason, and gosh, if you have not tried House of Saka in the state of California, and I believe also in Michigan, you need to go find it, or soon in Michigan, right? Or, well, sorry, it'll be found in places. But either way, yeah, you need to try it. It's awesome. We're going to talk about the flavors. And then last but not least, I'm so excited because we've known Doreen for such a long time. Doreen Sullivan of My Bud Vase. Now, it is one of the most respected premier luxury bong collections in the industry. Doreen's been featured in Forbes, Newsweek, High Times, and more. You're an award-winning visionary. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
We're fabulous. We're so happy to be here and to kick off your podcast series and to connect as leaders and innovators in this industry. So thank you for inviting us. Thank you for inviting me. And look at this panel. Exciting.
I'm excited to get started. And what's interesting is that just before we went live, you know, I talked briefly, like we had Shanel on C-Suite Conversations a couple of weeks ago, and then we had some technical difficulties. And I said, Shanel, you'll be back. Don't worry. And then if anyone was tuned in to our holiday special, we did like this impromptu like IG live, and I invited Jasmine and Cynthia and Doreen, but you guys were only on for like a few seconds, giving some giveaways and just some like great information about your businesses. And I said, you'll be back. And so I'm keeping my promise. You're back, but not only are you back, you're here to talk about being an innovator. And what does that mean? And I actually want to start with Jasmine. And the reason why, because when I heard about your brand, Buy Weed from Women, I think initially people immediately think of the flower itself, right? But I see that as a representation of what you all are today. You're all product makers, you're all visionaries. And I see that as buying weed from Shanel and her product, or Doreen and Cynthia, and even you, Jasmine. And so to me, Buy Weed from Women is such a, I feel like it's a movement. And, you know, I don't know if that's what you started out, but can you tell us more about Buy Weed from Women?
Yeah, absolutely. One, I'm a designer and I come from a space of words. And so that has always been my thing, like creating words, putting words together, putting messages together. And so Buy Weed from Women started by way of me just wanting to put words together. But then when I put those words together, right, and we created the first product, which was a white t-shirt, right, and it was low cost. It was a white tee, black writing, because we were keeping the cost as minimal as possible. And then I looked at the response, right, and me, myself personally, I didn't have enough money to enter into the cannabis industry, and it wasn't my primary idea of work. But Buy Weed from Women became unique because it's in a way a mantra for the cannabis industry without ever touching cannabis. And I learned quickly that I become an asset to the cannabis industry if I'm not competing with cannabis. And so one thing that I focused on was the message and building a mantra. And if I have a mantra, right, that is overarching, that unifies people, everybody now collectively is a part of Buy Weed from Women. And I'm no longer in product competition or actual like flower competition in a space that I cannot primarily afford. And what we see is that the messaging gives us the same access that the actual cannabis product does. And so it's been a fun experience watching people kind of come together under the idea. But Buy Weed from Women started as just one, a product design, and then two, concepting ideas with different companies. And then we wanted to just expand upon that.
And how long were you working on that language? Like, did it just come overnight? Was that, you know, and I say that because I'm sure as innovators, I wonder how busy your minds are, right? Are you like, oh, I want to launch this, I got this idea. Like, did it take a while, or is that something that came immediate?
I wasn't working on it. And it was a random thing that I did one day. And I remember a friend of mine saying, like, but what do you have to do with that? Because my focus was and has been poetry for a very long time. And so I played with it on my personal platforms, and within seconds, within moments, it became its own thing. And I juxtaposed it to the career that I was trying to build for myself. And it took me like almost 15 years to build a sustainable career that actually function in real life and by way of e-commerce on social media. By Weed from Women found its success within 2 years. And so I knew that I had something special because it was just a different kind of motion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. And so now I want to pivot over to Shanel, because Shanel, we started speaking with you a couple of weeks ago about your device, and I'm a huge fan of it. Some people call it the easy bake oven for adults, and I still love that. I don't know if that bothers you or not, but I loved my easy bake oven growing up and always wanted to like make some kind of desserts in it. And you came up with something that I actually recently gave as a gift to a friend of mine. And so I put her on assignment, like, you need to learn how to use this and use it right, because it's one of the best devices in the market. Where did the idea to create Ardent come from?
So thanks so much first for having me here. And I just cannot stop smiling during this panel, because as I'm looking at the women on this panel, first of all, I have such a passion for creating products. And I have such a passion for the ancillary side of the business and seeing women enter this field. And it's so amazing to reconnect. Like, Cynthia and I have known each other for a very long time, but, Doreen and Jasmine, we're just getting to, know each other, yet both of your messages have reached me prior to our meeting, and that is really the amazing part as I'm hearing about all of the different journeys here. And even now, Cynthia, being plant touching, when I, originally knew you, right, it was on the ancillary side, promoting women, promoting businesses. So to now kind of see that come full circle and us be able to have, something really resonated with me on when it comes to not competing with the plant, right? And being able to bring something new to that space. And it's amazing to me to be here right now, because I do have one of those first Buy Weed from Women shirts on the, the white shirt with black lettering. And that was actually given to me by another female CEO that runs a dispensary that I'm a part of, as a motivational gift to me. So it's just really amazing how that kind of circles back around, and how our products can touch each other and motivate each other, within the space. And that's definitely what we try to do with Ardent. For me, making the transition of and having kind of a dual pathway in cannabis of being a cannabis lawyer, being an activist, and being a medical patient who had been using cannabis for over 10 years and wanting to bring this understanding of how to make different edibles and how to make different products to people. And then seeing that there really was no accurate way to do that when you were talking about home appliances. And so I did testing at a laboratory that opened up. And again, that's why it's so important for legalization to progress, because cannabis is so often shrouded in mystery when it comes to how people should use it, what the science is behind it. When you think about it, decarboxylation, it is the fundamental process for having active THC and CBD, and yet there was no testing around it, And so for me, once I went to a laboratory and was able to show under lab conditions that you actually could get full activation, which meant for most people that you're able to use a fraction, half or less of the amount of cannabis that you used to use in order to make a product, that was the aha moment of, okay, I need to be able to bring this to the individual person. And how do I go and create a product that brings that to that individual? And that was really the spark that led to me developing the product and bringing that to market, and really kind of taking on, the science, breaking that down into something that was actually enjoyable for folks.
How many versions of of your device? Because you have what, like 4 or 5 on the market, I think now?
It's 2 now. So the original device was Nova, and that was the original product brought to market. Anybody who has the OG Novas are like actually product that was put together by me, my own hand, and and me soldering it. Like, I won't say that they were the best devices. They had all the technology there, but as far as actually moving from hand producing electronic product, right? That's not ideal, to actually moving into full production and factory production, and really having control over being able to create large quantity of product, to bring. And that's really what you need to be able to do with a brand at some point, is scale your product so that you can service as many customers and, bring your message to as many people as possible.
Right, because I saw that now you have, and I guess when I meant 4 or 5 products, because you also have like now accessories for the product itself. I want you to hold it up.
Yeah, so right
show.
now, and I love the Easy Bake comparison. I love my Easy Bake oven. When I was younger, it was one of my first kind of DIY. Like, I'm a DIY person. I do a lot of DIY, things. And for me, being able to say, okay, as an adult, the most important thing to me is making my cannabis product. So last year, I think we launched about 12 different accessories in addition to the FX, which launched in 2020. And so this actually has 4 different settings to activate THC and CBD, to infuse, and then also you can bake inside of it. So you can actually make little cupcakes or cook pasta or create, patches. We actually have some suppositories and some transdermal patches that are coming out later this year, really starting to focus on wellness. Up until this point, we have tons of edibles kits, which are great from a business standpoint. It's really kind of low-hanging fruit for us to go. We have a commercial kitchen. We produce product. And really now the next phase of Ardent is to move into those other items. And the great thing is you can think of any product and kind of deconstruct that and make it at home. And that's great for people, especially if they don't have full access to cannabis yet, which, still remains elusive in many places.
It does. I'll tell you what's interesting. So I just watched the reel the other day on how to make a poached egg in your device.
Yes.
That was so much fun. I was like, oh my God, this is fascinating. Like, I would have never thought. And I think that that's just an example to help people see beyond what we typically believe, something can make. Like, you're showing us, much like, and that's why I intentionally use the Easy Bake Oven comparison. You're showing us different options. Typically, someone sees an oven like that and you're thinking only desserts. I have watched, I will admit, I might be a little bit nerding out on it, but I'm watching all the reels. I'm like, oh, look at this recipe and look at this, and I want to try this. But it's teaching me to think beyond what I see the product as. And that's why I think you're such a great example of an innovator in this space. And do I have it right? Are you celebrating an anniversary?
Yeah, so it is our 6th anniversary for Ardent. So we've been 6 years in business now, and that's a great milestone. And yeah, my team does a great job, teaching people and opening their eyes to kind of the different pieces, and also kind of on collaborations, right? And that's something that we're really excited about. And we're actually, really excited to do collaborations with folks like Doreen and, my bud Vase. And one of the things that, is interesting to folks is, a lot of people don't know that you can actually decarb bud and then smoke it afterwards, right? And so there's really interesting ways to kind of put that concept forward and use collaborations with other amazing women-led brands to spread that message, and also, elevate other amazing products as well.
So here's what's interesting, and I want to switch over to Doreen. Because Doreen, when I first saw your product, one, I didn't even know it was a bong. I thought it was a vase, right? And what I have seen it evolve over the years. By the way, it's art. It really is art. Beautiful, beautiful pieces. And I know I've heard your story before, but I'd love for you to share, like, when did the first bong come about? Like, how did that idea come to you? Oh, you're muted.
Hang on one second.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. I love that you say art because, one of the things I truly believe that is there's art in everything. So my background is in art, in creative. I own an advertising agency. I started it when I was 25 years old in the music industry in New York City. My very first project was the original Dirty Dancing. So my entire career, I know, right? Isn't that so cool?
Right.
My entire career has been creating for entertainment companies, the music industry, the film industry. I mean, I cannot wait one day to be able to just open up the vault and share my background. So I'm a product developer. I'm a brand person. And as a creator, I always go to the art. And this is what, like Jasmine, you're so right. Like you created a line of merchandise and words that fit together artistically. And you created something that became a mantra and that everybody relates to. So as an artist, my whole world was in this corporate world of creating for wonderful companies. And I always consumed cannabis to be creative. Whenever I got stuck, it was literally I need a great idea by noon. And I'm like, fuck, I got to go out and get high right now. I don't have it. And so cannabis always inspired my creativity. I didn't even realize how much I relied on this beautiful plant to really get the juices flowing. Mm-hmm. So, here then we're 34 years of this agency and amazing legacy career. But because I'm in the South, so I'm an LA, New York girl who wound up in the South through a marriage. So I then had to hide my cannabis consumption. It became the secret. I felt so dirty and so I was doing something wrong. So I was winning awards for my creativity and then hiding my lifestyle in the same time. Mm. And I was a parent, and God bless the Mommy Jane and all these women who are standing up for the scrutiny and the judgment of how you raise your children. I went through that, but I hid it. I wasn't able to come out on a platform, so I know how hard these canna moms are, on their journey is to be commended. So I was hiding my cannabis as a mom, hiding my cannabis as a professional. And I had just moved to my dream place on this little beach called Folly Beach. I had gotten high after work one day, a hard day. Somebody came to the door. I was in a new place and I'm like, here I am, hide the bong dance, right? And I'm like, oh shit, who's at the door? What are we doing? And I hid my bong amongst my vases in my house. Okay, so I had this vase. I bought this condo and there was a vase that was shaped like a bong. And I would always be like, that thing looks like a bong. And I happened to have my ugly, phallic, dirty bong next to this vase that was shaped like a bong. And when the construction guy left, I sat there and I was like, my heart was racing and I'm like, damn it, this is the last time. This is it. I'm done. I'm done hiding who I am. I'm done hiding this lifestyle, and I'm going to find a way to make this work. And the very next day, which was August of 2015 is when I started, I called up a friend and I'm like, I got $1,000 to start. I'm going to try to start repurposing vintage vases and turn them into bongs because here we go. So mind you, I'm a product developer, been my whole life. So I literally I actually made and sold over 1,000 my bud vases, individual, one of a kind, vintage pieces before I started to scale up and design, the pieces that you know of. So by the time I got to Women Grow, when I first met you in 2018, I think I had Aurora and the Friends Collection and maybe Coyote or something like that. But I had all these. And now there's many people, I'm not the first person to drill a hole in something and call it consumption, but it needed to be brought to market in a sophisticated way where art was everything. And so to this day, and, part of my struggle is sharing everything we're doing here. To this day, we have our artisan vases on our website in addition to all the beautiful signature collection pieces. And so because I have to stay inspired as an artist and I want to continue to create art. For me, if I lose that, I lose the whole purpose of this company. Yes. Is to beautify cannabis and to normalize cannabis through art and through beautiful consumption. So I brought our latest piece.
Thank you, because I've been geeking out on it. I was going to say, I hope she brings the palm. That's what I've been calling it.
So this is Toca Cabana. So I'll look at this baby. Okay, it is just dripping in color. It's got feet. It's got a little lid, and all of our pieces come with the florals. And the main purpose is because it starts with a vase. It starts with beautiful home decor, and then it repurposes or it turns into a bong. So, and then this piece has a little friend. So we made this cute little toucan. Isn't he debatable?
I love that. And then in the toucan,
it's your flower poker. Because I mean, bobby pins don't ever straighten up. Paper clips drive me crazy. And so, you know, when you talk about innovation, you can start with an idea and continue to innovate your product. I'm sure this is what all of us have in common. And this is an innovator call to action. You never stop innovating if you're an innovator. You know, the packaging, the this. So, you know, this is the first time we actually have a bracelet, you know, and our tag around our piece. You know, as mostly we have time.
That.
Cute. And so
That's adorable.
This is going to be my favorite thing to show you. And so the toucan actually rests on top of your bong when you're not using it to remind you to toke up and get out in the cabana and enjoy life. So,
and the leaf also can work as a poker as well, correct?
Yeah, usually, but here's something. Some of the products, now that I'm getting into really elaborate floral arrangements, some of them don't poke because they're too like this in general.
Thick. Yeah. That's too thick. Oh no. She'll come back. But if you're tuning in, here's what I'll say. You make sure that you follow at My Bud Vase. You can find them on all platforms. I promise you, not only are the products amazing, but her posts are so entertaining. And so until Doreen joins us, I want to pivot to you, Cynthia, my Wanakasaur there, and ask you, okay, so I know your story, and just like everyone else here, but what I love about your innovation is that, and it's not, again, like Doreen said, it's not the only one on the market, but you're appealing to what I feel is a certain demographic that is looking to blend, right? Like, let's say you're at a cocktail party. You have a very snazzy bottle, let me just tell you. You got a very gorgeous, very sexy bottle. Did you bring the mimosa and the pink? Well, yes.
Old pink. We actually have a new bottle designed for the pink and white that introduced to the market in mid-August, but our Spark is now out now. The Mimosa just came out 2 weeks ago. We're really excited about that. It's actually interesting because cannabis-infused beverages are legally not allowed to use any terms related to alcohol. So we can't say beer, rosé, wine, IPA, mimosa. Mm-hmm. However, legally, you are allowed to use whatever cannabis strain is in the product. So we went and commissioned the mimosa cannabis strain to be infused in our product. So now we have a mimosa.
So now you can call it mimosa. So why don't we start from the beginning? How did this all come about?
Before we start, I have to take 2 seconds to fangirl. First of all, Shanel, I have to say, it's been 5 or 6, 7 years. And I watched so many men come for you in the beginning, and you're still here and thriving. And I cannot begin to express how every time I see you, I'm always ultimately impressed. I'm not surprised you went to UPenn. But that aside, then I'd like to jump to Jasmine. Jasmine, this whole time I'm embarrassed to say that I had no idea you were an actual brand. So I've been sharing everywhere you can imagine on all of our platforms. Every one of your posts, Buy Weed from Women, I never realized what it was tied to. How genius. I mean, you're one of the only people who I literally peddle all of their social media posts. So well done.
She's got jackets, t-shirts. I mean, we're going to come back to you on how you've expanded your initial idea, but I want to talk about the can of wine.
Okay.
And the cannabis infused beverage.
So your question was, how did it start?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So about 7 years ago, when I was asked to join the cannabis industry, I did a ton of research into the entire plant, potential, anything you can imagine. And one of the common threads and themes I would find, and when I was researching at this time, I had just left Penn, and that was my life, was research. So you can only.
That's right. You and Shanel are both UPenn alumni. I'm sorry. That just clicked. Sorry.
So I imagine they're incredibly proud of at least 2 of the 5 people on this call being from their school. But whatever the case may be, I kept coming across for thousands and thousands of years, one of the oldest methods of consumption for cannabis was cannabis-infused wine. Of course, they infused it with a couple other things, amphetamines and lots of love. But this particular mixture was something that was used for like spiritual ceremonies. It was considered a holy sacrament. It was also used by our brand name, the Saka and the Scythians, which we'll get in a second, for their war rituals. So our brand name, Saka, that is the name of a Central Asian tribe where the mythological Amazonian women come from. And while I was at UPenn researching all of the empires in Central Asia, Russia, Middle East, I came across this particular group. And since I'm Persian and my grandmother is actually tied to them, I always said if I ever came up with a cannabis brand, number one, it would be an infused wine, because why reinvent the wheel if this is what's been happening for thousands of years? And it would definitely, if I ever owned a brand, be named Saka. So I wound up working for Ebu, doing their PR for a couple of years. And Ebu is the company that invented the water-soluble solution for beverages initially. They were eventually acquired by Canopy Growth for lots of money. But the second we invented that, I knew it was time for me to slowly bring things together. And within a year, we passed Prop 64 in California. So I was able to take all of the connections and everything I had pulled together over a few years, waiting for this moment to come. The second we passed Prop 64, I went out, I found Tracy, and we got the brand launched, and here we are.
Which Tracy was a guest, one of our early guests on C-Suite Conversations. So if you're tuning in, go through our Instagram page, go troll our page, not in a mean way, in a nice way. Go find that episode and learn about Tracy. And so you find Tracy, you begin to start planning the launch or developing House of Saka. But I know that it took many tries before you finally got it right. Like, how did that come about?
So there's literally still to this day almost zero infrastructure to support the cannabis infused beverage industry here in California. It's shocking and bizarre. So it took us about 1.5 years just to build the supply chain to be able to legally develop the product. There has been nothing but major obstacles, and that's the case for every cannabis brand. Let me be very serious. For me, a cannabis brand just defines endurance. If you can last 1 year or 2, then we know you have the wits about you and the capability to pivot when you need to in order to survive.
Because in dog years, that's like 14 years, the year to like, right?
So we found literally the one manufacturing facility. And to this day, 3 years later, it's still the only manufacturing facility for every cannabis infused beverage here in California. Once again, shocking. So we found them. They got their license on my birthday in 2018. We were able to get the product literally developed and bottled within a few months. Then the next challenge was trying to find somebody who would distribute our brand. So because apparently people in weed distribution don't want to carry glass, especially glass above a certain size. So it was hard enough to find the manufacturing. It took us another 9 to 10 months to piecemeal. We started out with a small distribution company in LA and a small one up in San Francisco, and that supported us for almost 1 year. Which, by the way, completely bottlenecks your ability to reach potential, to say the least. But for us, we knew we would eventually get to where we needed to be. We just needed the product to be alive on the market while we figured everything out. So that took us literally almost another year. And that brings us to about almost 1 year ago, not even, when we finally had manufacturing all worked out, full distribution for the state all worked out. And now we're flying off the shelves and out of stock for 2 of our products. Praise the Lord.
That is awesome. Which products do you have?
So right now there's literally only Spark on the market. We have pink and white all ready to and teed up for the end of next month. But in the meantime, you can only really grab Spark for now, the mimosa.
And it is, so there's no alcohol, just cannabis.
It is Napa Valley wine. So that is another thing that differentiates us from everyone else. Our wine is strictly 100% Napa Valley. That's a pretty big deal. We spend a lot of money to do that. It's real wine. Then we take it, we go and we remove the alcohol before we gently infuse with the THC CBD proprietary formulation. But
I love that you said gently. That just sounds so like carefully infused. And so you have a relationship with the vineyard. And I'm asking these, you know, they may seem minor and small questions, but I'm sure someone's wondering, what do you mean? Like you go to a vineyard, you ask for some grapes, like how does that happen?
So I am blessed with most of my C-suite has been running Napa Valley for the last 40 years. So our COO and CFO is Sue Bakarski. Sue was the COO, CFO of Constellation Brands for about 33 years.
Wow.
And then she retired about a year and a half ago and came straight to us. So those relationships and contacts, to say the least, are obviously the best in the world. So we do have very strong specific partnerships with certain vineyards in Napa Valley. We could never, ever say who they are. Legally, we cannot. But I can guarantee you our wine, if you were to walk into a regular liquor store and buy our rosé wine, which by the way, rosé normally goes for between 10 and 20. It's not a very expensive product. You walk in and grab our rosé in its natural form with its natural vineyard brand, you're dropping at least $50 to $60. It's literally one of the best rosés in the world. And I would say our other partners are some of the most recognized wine brands literally in the world. But what we do is we go and we purchase 1,000 gallons or whatever we need at that time. It's called a lot. So we purchase, once harvest happens, we go and we start to taste all of the different wines. Then we decide which one we want. We buy 1,000 gallons. We shift it over to Bev Zero. They start to remove the alcohol. Bertosa has already formulated our proprietary infusion. Everything gets sent over to our bottling facility and our manufacturers, and that's where everything is put together before it moves to our distribution unit.
Wow. I love your label, by the way. It's beautiful, and I want to get back to that. But I want to shift back to Doreen, and she's joined us again, no, you're muted. No, keep going. Unmute.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, we had literally the laptop just overheated and just went out. I was just like, well,
so first of all, anyone that's tuning in, you're in, was it North Carolina or South Carolina?
North Carolina, Charleston, South
Carolina. Jasmine's in Newark. Shanel's in Massachusetts or in Boston area. And then Cynthia is are you back in the desert? You're in the desert. She's in California in the desert. So we're in all parts of the country. And right now, I think we're all experiencing a heat wave. So I'm sure your laptop is like, listen, it is hot in here and I'm about to shut it down. But, it's interesting. You said something earlier about hiding your lifestyle. And given that you are in the entertainment space, whether music, film, what have you. And it's so interesting because I do come from that background as well early on in my career. Half of those people smoke weed anyway. And I'm just going to say it like in a non, appropriate way of referring to it. But people got high like that. It's so interesting that we feel so compelled to hide the lifestyle in the very circles that actually welcome it. But there's still that stigma there, which is why I think what you came up with is so genius. And if it weren't for that contractor, like kind of leading you to seeing how to, just stuff your bong in between a lamp, but seeing the art in that and seeing the beauty of how it can blend.
Right. Well, and in the entertainment business, there was flexibility. I mean, they did a lot more than cannabis. But when I moved to the South, I started working in corporate America, and I started working with universities and government, in tourism. And in my agency, I've been in many, many different sectors, and that's where I really kind of lost my voice, in a lot of ways, as I was making their voice stand out and differentiate. But the other thing, before I got cut off, I was going to tell you is one of the other reasons I created this is because it's such an ordeal to get all your paraphernalia out and consume. And then once you're in that perfect high space, and then you have to clean it up or get rid of it or not leave it out, it was such a hassle. And like, the best thing is when you're done with this, you just turn it around and you put your flowers in it and you walk out the door. And so that convenience for a mother, especially for a busy woman, for a professional, is also a driving factor. It's one of the values of the brand is that it's so easy to have it beautifully on display, hidden in plain sight, and you can either talk to somebody about it, you can show it off, hide it, put it up, the kids come in, it's up, the neighbor comes over, it's out. I mean, it's just...
That's so interesting, because I would say that kind of hits on all of what you all do. Because if I saw Shanel's device, if I saw her appliance on a shelf or, on a counter, I wouldn't think I wouldn't think about what it is. I would just say, oh, it's just like an appliance. Cynthia's wine, in no way would I think that was cannabis infused. But what to me that says, and by the way, Jasmine's line, although it's very, it's words in your face. It's not like, I find, and by the way, I've worn my jacket, I find more people like, yeah, that's right, buy weed from women, versus clutching your pearls and being stunned by a message. But it's interesting, because I feel like that's another piece of innovation, right? Because early on in this industry, I think things were not, I wouldn't say, I didn't find them as creative, right? I didn't find them as innovative as where you guys are going with this. And so I actually want to bounce back to Shanel, right? And ask, I know you talked about how you put this together and how it, kind of started out, but where does your mind go after that? Like, are you thinking, okay, next I can create this? I would imagine as creatives, because I see you all as creatives, that you're always thinking of what's next.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, when it comes to being able to be innovative in this space, I think there's just a huge opportunity. Like you mentioned, it wasn't that long ago when, the entire industry was dominated by like chicks in bikinis and, people dressed up in, big puffy costumes, and so I think especially for women, there's a huge opportunity to bring just our authentic selves to cannabis, and that being able to reach such a broad swath of women and everyone else, right? Because I think that there is this stoner stereotype where, I know for me and my team, and I know for the rest of the women on this panel, we are very much, of the culture in that authenticity, right? And so for me, all the things that I think of next are all the things that I encounter every day in my life. And, frankly, it might look a lot more mainstream, even though it's very cannabis focused. And so I think that, for us, it's just literally about deconstructing every single product or creating a pathway for people to make every single product, even when they've never thought of it. Suppositories is a great, example. There are so many different uses for cannabis suppositories, and there's such a small number of available products that meet people's needs in that area. And so for us, being able to educate and open people's minds to the different ways that they could be consuming, and we see it as twofold, right? If you have the pathways and the different products to be able to make it, and then if you're able to use less cannabis when you're making a product, what we find is that people, okay, they can use half of what they used to use before, they don't stop there. They say, okay, great. Now I have extra. Now I can think about using this as a beauty product, as a facial toner, as a topical, rather than just my specific medical need. And so that idea of that continued normalization and replacing over-the-counter medicines that don't work as well, that are more expensive, and just really changing people's minds when it comes down to how they can be incorporating cannabis into their lives and what a cannabis brand looks like.
I don't know if anyone's ever said that, but what came to mind as I'm listening to you and I'm looking at this screen, you all are educators in your own right through your product. And I say that to say because of the many things that we're learning about your creation, Shanel, versus what Cynthia's doing. She's showing someone that you can consume wine and that there's a certain number of milligrams per pour that she's teaching people about, that they're learning how to consume in a certain way that they hadn't considered before. And when you think about what Doreen's done with her bongs, is that you can have this in plain sight, but she's teaching people how to be creative in a way that are things that we use every day that you didn't realize you can switch and turn. And then here you've got Jasmine, who took words and turned them into a whole line. And I want to pivot back to you, Jasmine, because you started out with the t-shirt, and I don't even want to tell you how many products I have. Your team is probably like, gee, it's ordering again. But I'm ordering because I love the message. But what I've also recognized in the message is how I can wear that message in so many different ways. And so you started out in a white t-shirt, and now you have a box. You had a box that you partnered with someone. Can you show? Do you have one of your products? You're the only one I didn't ask it. Yes.
So we started off with a t-shirt, and of course I was like working within my means as a creative, but not only was it a t-shirt, but we wanted to print local, and we didn't want to use like the drop shipping method. And I came from like a creative culture here in Newark, New Jersey, of like local creatives who screen printed. So screen printing is a really big art form to not only me, but to the Buy Weed from Women brand. And so one thing that we did was we still hand make all of our shirts in New Jersey. We don't outsource our products. And so, we built more and more and more, but we wanted to build within the screen printing means. And then we decided to do a collaboration with Etain, our sisters in New York City. And it was literally a friend of mine said, like, I have a friend in cannabis, you're a friend in cannabis, y'all should meet. And we met and we talked about all of the ideas that we wanted to execute in the entire industry. And I mentioned like a box, like what if there was this like collaborative box? But then the pandemic happens and the resources are now scarce where you can't just order a box and then mass produce it and then have it prepared for the Black Friday and then the Christmas holiday. And so what we did locally was we printed each box by hand. And that was something that was important to the brand. And so one thing that we don't talk too much about in Buy Weed from Women, online, it looks like an e-commerce company, but we're printing and designing everything ourselves and doing thousands of prints. But not only that, but doing wholesale distribution and making sure that these products exist in dispensaries that we couldn't necessarily put other products in. And so what our goal is building this Buy Weed from Women ecosystem by way of wholesale distribution in both the United States and in Canada. And that's our way.
Products have gone beyond that. I've seen posts with people wearing your products around the world.
Yeah, it's exciting because all of those products are literally coming from Newark, New Jersey. We have a studio within an art gallery here downtown Newark, and that's where all distribution comes from. I'm still the lead designer, and I think I'm going to work on collaborating with more designers in the industry. But we're still small enough for us to print everything ourselves, which is something that we're committed to. And so upon this like growth, we don't want to necessarily outsource, but build a stronger infrastructure. So getting the factory, getting all that we need in order to build a sustainable screen printing company, design company within the cannabis industry.
Thank you so much. I want to pivot back to California. So Cynthia, so you have these 3 wines. I'm imagine that it doesn't stop there. Like, what else do you see for Saka?
We're actually a little bit behind, but we are launching a luxury wellness line that's beauty and like maybe topicals. So we'll be coming out with our cannabis and our THC infused bath salts probably first. Then you're gonna see right behind that we're gonna launch our our Cabernet. So actually, let me back
up. Cabernet, really?
Yeah.
I was like, yes.
Oh,
high dose. That's actually difficult to do. The flavoring with a red is extremely challenging. It seems to be the most challenging. That's why we waited till last for us to master that. But in addition to the Spark, by end of summer, the next product coming out will be our pink champagne. So the pink version of our single serve. Then the red will come out. Then the first will be the infused bath salts. Then we're probably going to see like an under eye cream. And then I think we're doing a sleeping shot, if that makes any sense. I don't know. That was just thrown into the mix recently. I think it's a personal project for my business partner. But it also seems to be, this particular product category seems to be selling well. So I'm wide open to it. But yes, we're about to start unveiling a lot more products by the end of the year, and there's a very specific reason why, which we can't talk about probably until September, but we are really excited about something else we actually have in the works, which makes sense why we're coming out with other products to fulfill it.
So what I mentioned this earlier when we talked, the design of your product. It again, I would refer to it as art. I mean, the label itself is gorgeous. It's so sexy. And it's, I mean, look at that, right?
It is art. We purchased this art from an artist, believe it or not. We found this piece of art, our creative designer literally bought it, the rights to it, and it is literal art.
It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. And you know, again, it goes back to the creativity behind all of your brands, right? It's thoughtful. It's not just slapped together and put in the marketplace. It feels like something I want to see on my bar, which by the way, I do have, but yeah, I love it. And the reason why I also, it was you that taught me, right? About like, you know, I am a wine drinker, but it was through you that I understood like the proper pour, right, for this, and being able to consume and enjoy cannabis without the smoke, without the, you know, whatever it is that how you want to integrate it into your lifestyle wherever you are or however you choose to.
So I would like to say one last thing. So cannabis infused beverages historically have been jam-packed with sugar, high fructose syrup, and anything you can imagine that we certainly don't want to put into our bodies as human beings and definitely as females. So a regular glass of wine is somewhere between 140 and 160 calories. Our glass of wine is 14 to 16, depending on if it's pink or white.
Yes, that's exciting.
What? I need you to repeat that again for the people that were sitting on the side that weren't listening. How many calories?
14 to 16, 14 if it's rosé, 16 if it's Chardonnay.
I feel like if Weight Watchers isn't paying attention, they need to pay attention right now and make it on one of their lists. And I say that to say because that's so important, because you're absolutely right. And even Shanel touched on this, like, you know, she wanted to introduce other recipes besides like the desserts. Like, it's important that we do understand, like, not everything needs to be sugar based. Not everything needs to be so sweet. So, and it tastes good. Like, I had no idea that it was, you know, I would say complementary calories to my daily lifestyle. So I appreciate that. Thank you for having that, you and your partner Tracy, which by the way, please tell her I said hello, but having that insight to say, you know what, this is a good direction. I actually want to circle back to you, Doreen, and I know we're coming up on the hour, and anyone that's tuning in, I'm so excited to have these incredible women. We've got Shanel, Lindsay, and Doreen. Well, Shanel, I do have a question. Remind me, why purple? Do you mind? Can I just switch to Shanel?
Yeah.
I need to, because I'm a huge Prince fan, and every time I see your product, I just want to start like breaking out into a Prince song. Why purple?
Well, I love purple, first of all. And I think it was, on our side, it was a color that was royal. It was also a color that we thought was universal, right? It wasn't green because we felt like that was like a little bit too on the nose. And purple really, I think, encapsulates a warmth and a different take on cannabis, right? There's often, me personally, some of my favorite strains are the purple strains. So I think being able to touch down on a color that is cannabis adjacent, but not, green was important to us. And certainly, seems like everybody loves purple. And so if you come to our office, it's like purple everywhere, but we actually are going to be introducing other colors in the future, because I know that is something that people have been asking about. So they will have some choices in the future as we get closer to holiday.
Okay, because I'm telling you, I really did. I was like, she must be a huge Prince fan like me, because I just see that and I think purple.
Of course, I love Prince, but that wasn't the exact inspiration,
I got it. But now, Doreen, back to you. So you now have expanded your line. And also, I don't know if we touched on, your bongs also come in different sizes. Why?
Oh, well, first of all, I start by each individual piece. To me, it's almost like a movie, or a theme. Like my mermaid bong is a tail. It's the right size. I knew when I designed it, I wanted something that just, was nestled in your hands, right to the mouth. This piece I wanted a little bigger because I really wanted it as a home decor. I like to trend a lot with forecasting and, really go into that like product design and home decor world. Mm-hmm. And, some of them just, a lot of women like smaller pieces, like Vamp, the cute little piece that's got the amulet and the earrings and all that with it. I mean, that is just like the cutest little bong. So I tend to see that women just don't want something overly sized. And if it is like Burmese, I created when all these parties were happening as a centerpiece for cannabis events. I was like, there's got to be something better for the table than, all these like freaking breast pump looking pieces. You know what I mean? And then I wanted a centerpiece. So it tends to be, I look at it like, because I come from theatrical marketing, I just look at it like its own story and its own little like creation. And I don't know if you've noticed, but My Bud Life is about to launch for us. And so I've been building, like in the background, first of all, I call it My Bud Vase because I think cannabis is each person's own choice. And there's so many choices and it's your own journey. And so I bought, when I started this and realized what I had in this name and this product, I started My Bud Life, which I don't even know what it's going to be yet. Like most innovators, you trust your guts and you move forward. But this is where I'm going to start to be able to launch beyond the bong products, cannabis lifestyle products. We just made a towel because it's cute. And so maybe that's where our podcasts live. And that's where our information on how to develop product goes. So I think like all of us, we're just, we now that we've made a product that really pioneered a category, all of us here have pioneered a category. And when you're an innovator, you literally are brave and breaking through those barriers to create something new. Then once you get past that line, the world's your oyster and you can't help but, you almost kind of like, you almost maybe have too much, but I love it because it's a joy, right? I'm sure you can all relate. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. So I do have a question before, because we have to wrap soon. But before we do, I got some real fast fire questions that I want to ask you all. But Doreen, because your bongs are so unique, how are they produced? Like, I mean, Jasmine said, you know, they're done by hand in her studio. I know that Cynthia's got her production. How do you do it with your my Vase?
Factories all over the world. I mean, literally Korea, China, Vietnam, Mexico, Poland. I'm actually working on some new pieces coming out where they're hand painted by this amazing female village in Poland, you know? So I work with manufacturers all over the world, which I've done my entire career in developing product for studios, on packs and all this stuff I've made. So I'll work with a particular factory that has like Coyote has a texture, and I wanted a sandy texture. I didn't want it to feel like it would fall out of your hands. Like a lot of glass pieces, you feel like you're going to slide them out. And so I sought out a factory that was incredible in ceramics and had multiple abilities, matte, colors, textures. So I find factories or work with my resources that I've built over 35 years of making products all over the world. And so my dream is to like continue to travel the world and make beautiful things. I want to go to Turkey and work with their glass factories, and go to India and work with their, you know, and just all over the place. So our signature collections are built to scale. And as a product developer, everything comes from somewhere else. The flowers from one place, the toucan from another place, the jewelry from another place, the bowl from another place. And then we assemble it all. All of our fulfillment is right next door in our fulfillment center, and all of our creative is in-house. My agency is now my agency for my bong business. So I'm like my own customer. Like
wonderful. I love that. So because I cannot believe how fast this hour has gone by, and I want to kidnap you all because I'm looking at some of the comments coming in. I love this panel. So I want to pivot just a little bit before we wrap. And I did share with you all that this will be our first panel that will actually air on our new podcast that actually drops tomorrow with our first episode. But for those who are tuning in, I want to just give you a little bit of insight of what G Suite Conversations, which is not named after me. G stands for the Growth Suite. So G Suite Conversations brings change makers, thought leaders, and innovators who are helping to push the industry forward through business. Staying true to our mission, we are committed to connecting, educating, empowering, inspiring the next generation of industry leaders. And so we're tapping diverse voices and experiences inside and outside of the industry who will share their journey with us, which you all have kindly done today. These are honest conversations that will leave the listeners inspired, which you have. And so, as I said, the G in the G Suite stands for the Growth Suite. And so for those innovators that are looking at you, what I would love for you to share, and I want you to be honest, and even if it's one word, tell us something that you learned about yourself in the process of innovation. I'll start with you, Jasmine, just because I was looking at you.
That money isn't the sustainable goal. The sustainable goal is innovation and creativity.
Thank you. Cynthia.
That I'm gritty. And
can you speak up?
So I'm sorry, guys. The speaker here is not as enjoyable as we'd like. Grit. I realized that definition of grit is something that made sense to me as soon as we had to start pivoting to keep the company alive and to figure out what was going on. I just realized, at least in my case, it wasn't as exciting as Jasmine's. If I would have listened to her comment before I opened my mouth, but I had raised my hand, it'd be a little better. But I learned that I do have some grit, and that's probably my greatest asset with these companies that I've started.
I think grit is a great answer. Shanel.
Yeah, so I realized that, when things seem like they're going wrong, sometimes it's a blessing in disguise. And the best thing to do is to try to just learn from that. And always look for those silver linings. The time that you spend, I look back on the things that I cried over, was completely deflated over, and all of those things, I was making them bigger than they were in my mind. And then the other thing that I learned is that there's no magic person or group or whatever that's going to come and solve that pain point that you're having. That, you can find it in yourself, or you have to be able to work through that. And trying to stay positive when it does get discouraging, because it does get discouraging. So just being able to work through that and feeling okay with feeling sad or disappointed, but just continuing to move past that, because the times where I dwelled on it too much, that was the bigger problem, right? Not the thing that happened, but my reaction to it.
Doreen.
I've learned to trust your intuition. I cannot tell you, as a career creative, how many times people have negated creativity as something that's some thing that's crazy in your head, that's unfocused, or, just too much. And the intuition that I now have, and the trust in that, and the acknowledgement that the universe is giving me answers that are as simple as right in front of my face, as in the vase, that was about, is so evident to me now, that I live in that flow, and I want to stay in that energy.
What do you guys do when you get too much in your head? Because I know we all do.
We get high.
Good answer. We get high. But I mean, and I say that to say, because as an innovator, and I said earlier, I'm sure you're creative. So you're always like, this idea. And so you're too much in there. What do you do to bring it down? Because I was talking to someone earlier who said her partner told her, those are all great ideas. Pick one and stick with it, because you can't do them all at the same time. And so what do you do to bring yourself back?
Well, you can do it. Number one, don't quit. Number two,
that's Cynthia. What did you say? I wanted to make sure that they heard you.
I said, just keep with it. Definitely, like Shanel just said, every day is an up and down for an entrepreneur. I hope I'm not shouting, but I keep getting a message to speak up. So now I'm like yelling at you all. I apologize. But anyways, I think the secret is to literally understand. So after a while, again, I'm just repeating everything Shanel said because she hit the nail on the head. You sit there overthinking about, oh my God, now this is going to fall apart. This person tried to steal that, blah, 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 blah. And you waste so much time doing that, more time. And then as you grow a little bit, you realize how much of a waste of time that was. You just got to keep your head down, stay focused. But more importantly, one thing I've learned in the last just 2 years alone is to take your weekends. So I went 10 years never taking a weekend, never breathing, never thinking. I gained 40 pounds, which I'm sure most of you have noticed I just lost over the last year, and that was hard to do. I just got in my own head, sat there and worked nonstop. The key is balance. Like, you have to have that balance. I never realized how much I needed that until I finally was forced to find it. And for me, that made all the difference in the world. Just taking some time to yourself and realizing that you can get some extra sleep on a Saturday night and it's not going to kill your brand on Monday. Like, these were things for me that were hard to understand. But take the time to yourself and find that balance. That would be what I say.
So rest supports creativity. Yes, Jasmine.
And I would say delegate. Sometimes I had to understand that I was not the customer service representative, nor was I the leader of the brand. And that my job was to find those people who could do the job, that I came up with the best ideas. And I think I have the most brilliant ideas. And that sometimes I just literally want to walk around the park thinking. And if that is what I'm going to do, and I have these brilliant ideas, that these ideas should be delegated to people. And then we break down the ideas like statistically and creatively. And we say, how much money will this make? How much time will this take? And then we organize the idea based on that. And if it's a brilliant idea, why not pay somebody to execute that immediately? But I think delegation has become a very, very important thing. And you delegate based on knowing what you are good at. That sometimes we think that we're good at everything just because we can do a lot of things. Like, I know how to build a website. And so I would literally try to build a website until someone said, but someone can build that website just as good as you can do your ... And so let everybody work to their maximum capacity by not doing someone else's job.
That's great. I'll check in with you, Doreen and Shanel, before we hop off. Anything else to add?
I think part of the journey, when you have a lot on your mind and you're creating, if you can get in a place where you can enjoy that and it's not work, I call it work laxing. Like, sometimes my mind never stops. And if I can get to the beach and let my mind continue, then at least I feel like I'm doing something for myself. In fact, there's a shirt, Jasmine, I want to do. Work laxing. It's my favorite thing. So, and then
I love that.
It's one of my, I love it. And you can relate, like, right? Of course. And women do that. The other thing is, I started training and making sure that I schedule my health. And that has helped me stay balanced. And like meditation, Sam Harris, 10 minutes every morning, I have to do to just slow down.
By the way, I didn't know there was a name for it, but I actually did what you just described, the work laxing. Like, I happened to have been in Miami and my work schedule didn't change. I went there for work, but what I realized, as long as I was looking at the water in front of me, because we were fortunate to be in a beachfront property, I worked. As long as I heard the ocean, I was still typing away and still working, but it felt good. And it felt like I was doing something for myself. And every now and then, especially the next day, the sun is out, it's shining on the water, it's blue. I'm like,
right.
I just needed that. Yeah. Now I can go and knock out some more. Shanel, I want to wrap with you before. Anything else to add here?
Well, I think I echo all the comments, and I think Jasmine really hit the nail on the head. Team is so important, and that's something that I didn't learn for many years into the business. I was alone for like the first couple of years, and all that leads you to do is be completely, spread way too thin. Building a team is hard though, because you obviously want to manage your expenses and you want to, keep everything under wraps. But I think that building a team, there's an amazing opportunity there. I also saw in the comments somebody asking about like transitioning into the cannabis industry. Becoming a part of a team is an amazing way to transition into an industry, and often can help both parties, if you're able to learn and essentially like apprentice and learn things. And then that owner is able to have somebody come in with some expertise, and then eventually even potentially become a partner in that business, right? There's a lot of opportunity on both sides there. And then, so building that team and being able to delegate on those ideas. And then for me, I have a lot of notebooks. I have a lot of like physical notebooks, and I use those notebooks and I write my ideas down and I go back to those ideas, because for me, it's not just enough. I like to build new things. And so often I can get unmotivated if I'm in one thing too long. So I have to have my notebook of like my next ideas that I can go to and sit with and be inspired by. And then just like Jasmine was saying, you go, and that's one thing that I think is interesting about this industry. Yes, you have to be focused on what you're doing. However, the cannabis industry is moving and changing so much that you have to be able to pivot. It might be that your best idea becomes a no-go the next day because of some regulation that happens, right? So you have to be ready with the other ideas, and you have to be, and it might be that something that was number 5 on your list as far as value becomes number 1 on your list the next day. And so I do think it's important to have all of those ideas somewhere that you can go back to and then regularly evaluate. Maybe it's while you're work laxing, you know what I mean? But that is definitely something I found motivating. Like as much as we've become digital, like my notebooks are, my babies.
I couldn't agree with you more. I actually have notebooks dating back to 87. And when I go back, some of those things I'll go back to and I'll look at and I'll laugh like, wow, I can't believe I thought this way. Or, wow, I can't believe I thought about this in 91 and look, I'm doing this now. Like those ideas really do flourish. And, you know, there is that, that saying that, use a number 2 pencil and, write your thoughts and your ideas. It will become something. And so I believe it's a form of meditation. I believe it's a form of creativity, right? Of getting those ideas down on paper. And I'm all about a pen and paper or pencil and paper. So I love that. I don't want to say bye, but I have to. and for anyone that's tuning in, each of our speakers have put their handles up. I want you to go and follow Ardent LLC. I want you to follow Buy Weed from Women. I want you to follow House of Saka. I want you to follow my Bud Vase. And then, when we post this, or it should be, the description should be up, information on how to find each of these incredible women, each of these incredible innovators. I thank you guys so much. I really, really do appreciate your time, your candidness. I close every talk that I do with just sayings. I read several books a day because that's my meditation. And so I found this one in this book. It's one of my favorite books. It's called The Path Made Clear, Discovering Your Life's Direction and Purpose. And it's a book by Oprah Winfrey that she has a collection of messages from guests that have appeared on her Super Soul Sunday. So yeah, Oprah, I'm giving you shout outs. But, one of the chapters that I marked here, it's called The Seeds. And the message here is your life isn't about a big break. It's about one significant life transforming step at a time. And I thought, wow, that's what you guys did, right? And then the other chapter that really stuck out for me, it's called The Road. And this is also a quote from Oprah. And she says, find your lane, make space for the flow to show itself. Follow the natural rhythm of your life, and you will discover a force far greater than your own. And so with that, ladies and viewers and anyone else that's tuning in, I think you're doing that. Continue to do that. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and much continued success to you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Oh, that was awesome.
Yay!